The bathroom door clicked shut behind us, the party's music now a muffled thrum. My boss, the woman who intimidated our entire department with her razor-sharp intelligence and unreadable expressions, stood so close I could smell her perfume. Her eyes, usually calculating during our meetings, now held something different as she whispered, "This stays between us, Marcus." My heart hammered against my ribs as I nodded, completely unprepared for what she would say next. Words that would change everything for me and my daughter. I never planned on being a single dad. Nobody does, I guess. But life has its own blueprints, and mine were redrawn 3 years ago when Ellie's mother decided family life wasn't for her. She left us a note, her wedding ring, and a 5-year-old who couldn't understand why Mommy wasn't coming home. The first year was a blur of tears, both Ellie's and mine, though I saved mine for after she fell asleep. I learned to do her hair by watching YouTube tutorials, spending hours figuring out how to moisturize her curls and braid cornrows that wouldn't unravel by lunchtime. My mother would laugh at me on our video calls, watching her son struggle with a wide-tooth comb and hair butter, but she'd guide me through it with patience. I memorized the names of her stuffed animals and which ones needed to be arranged in what order on her bed. I became an expert at making dinosaur-shaped pancakes and cutting sandwiches into hearts. What I couldn't master was balancing it all. My job at Meridian Tech Solutions demanded long hours while Ellie needed stability and attention. Babysitters came and went. After-school programs helped, but they ended at 5:30 and client meetings rarely respected that timeline. I was perpetually exhausted, perpetually late, and perpetually feeling like I was failing at everything. That's when Rebecca Harper entered the picture. The new regional director brought in to optimize operations, corporate speak for figuring out who wasn't pulling their weight. She was brilliant, efficient, and terrifying. In her first month, she restructured 2 departments and let go of 12 people. Everyone walked on eggshells around her, including me, especially me, because my performance reviews had been slipping. Not because I couldn't do the work. I was good at my job when I could focus on it, but because life kept intervening. Like the time Ellie got strep throat and I missed the quarterly planning meeting. Or when her school called during a client presentation because she'd had a meltdown about her mother during family tree day. I was certain my name was on Rebecca's list. I started updating my resume during lunch breaks, researching companies with more flexible hours and calculating how long my meager savings would last if the axe fell. The annual holiday party wasn't something I particularly wanted to attend. Office parties meant finding overnight childcare, which was both expensive and complicated, but attendance was strongly encouraged, especially for team members who valued their position with the company. The subtext wasn't subtle. I called in a favor for my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, who adored Ellie and was the only sitter my daughter didn't complain about. She reminded me of my own grandmother, always ready with a warm smile and a plate of food. I put on my one decent suit, slightly tight around the middle now, and promised Ellie I'd be home before she woke up. The party was held at some trendy downtown hotel with mood lighting and waiters carrying trays of appetizers too small to satisfy actual hunger. I made the rounds, chatted with colleagues, and tried to appear relaxed while mentally counting down the minutes until I could leave without it seeming rude. I was one of the few black faces in the room, something I'd grown used to in corporate tech, but it still made these events feel more like performances than parties. I was in a conversation with Dave from accounting when my phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Thompson. "Ellie had nightmare asking for you, very upset." My stomach dropped. This happened sometimes. Night terrors where she'd wake up screaming for her mother, then for me, inconsolable until I held her and promised I wasn't going anywhere. I texted back that I'd leave right away, then looked up to find Rebecca Harper watching me from across the room. Our eyes met, and I quickly put my phone away, trying to appear engaged in whatever Dave was saying about tax deductions. 10 minutes later, I was edging toward the exit when Rebecca intercepted me. "Leaving so soon, Marcus?" Her voice was cool, professional, but with an undertone I couldn't quite read. Yes, family situation, I said, trying to sound vague rather than desperate. She studied me for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she glanced around the room and said, "Follow me for a moment. We need to talk." My heart sank. This was it. She was going to fire me at the company Christmas party. Probably thought it was kinder than making me come in after the holidays. I followed her through the crowd, past groups of laughing colleagues toward the hallway leading to the restrooms. To my surprise, she pushed open the door to the women's bathroom, checked inside, then motioned for me to follow. I hesitated, but the look she gave me brooked no argument. Once inside, she locked the door behind us. "This stays between us, Marcus," she said, her voice lower now, less clipped than usual. I nodded, bracing myself for the blow. "I've been reviewing your file extensively," she continued. "Your work, when you're able to complete it, is exceptional. Your client satisfaction ratings are among the highest in the department." This wasn't going how I expected. I remained silent, waiting for the but that would precede my dismissal. "However," she said, close enough to but for my stomach to clench, "your attendance and reliability metrics are concerning." There it was. I took a deep breath. "I understand. I know I've been struggling to—" She held up a hand, stopping me. "I'm not finished. I've also noticed a pattern to your absences and late arrivals. They correspond with school holidays, early dismissals, and what appear to be childcare emergencies." I swallowed hard. "My daughter is 8 years old and has no mother in the picture." She finished for me. "Yes, I'm aware. Human Resources keeps thorough records." I felt a flash of indignation at the clinical way she summarized my life's greatest joy and deepest struggle. But I kept my expression neutral. This wasn't the time to get defensive. What she said next, though, completely blindsided me. "I was raised by a single father," Rebecca said, her voice softening almost imperceptibly. "He worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat after my mother died. I was 9. The revelation hung in the air between us. It was the first personal information she'd shared with anyone at the company as far as I knew. "I'm sorry," I said, because what else could I say? She waved away my sympathy. "It was a long time ago. The point is, I understand your situation better than you might think, and I'm not going to fire you." Relief flooded through me so intensely, I had to lean against the sink counter. "Thank you. I promise I'll figure out a better system for—" "I'm not finished," she said again. "I'm not firing you because I'm offering you an alternative arrangement." She reached into her small clutch purse and pulled out a business card, handing it to me. It read, "Meridian Tech Solutions, Remote Operations Division." "We're expanding our remote work program next quarter," she explained. "Employees who qualify can work from home 3 days a week, coming into the office only for essential meetings and client presentations. The program includes flexible hours, provided all work is completed and client needs are met." I stared at the card, then back at her, hardly daring to believe what I was hearing. "You want me to transfer to this division?" "I want you to head it," she corrected. "Your technical skills are excellent, and despite your scheduling challenges, you've shown remarkable adaptability. More importantly, you understand the balance remote workers need to maintain. You can help us build protocols that actually work for people with real lives." My mind raced, calculating what this would mean. No more rushing to pick up Ellie from after-school care. The ability to be there when she got home to help with homework before starting my evening work session. No more calling in favors for school events or sick days. "Why?" I finally managed to ask. "Why me? Why now?" Rebecca's professional mask slipped just slightly, revealing something that might have been compassion. "Because talent is worth accommodating," she said. "And because I remember what it was like to have a father who was always exhausted, always stretched too thin, always choosing between being a good parent and being a good provider." She paused. "No one should have to make that choice if there's a viable alternative." My phone buzzed again in my pocket. Another text from Mrs. Thompson. No doubt. You need to go, Rebecca said, not a question. Your daughter needs you. I nodded, still processing everything. We'll discuss the details after the holidays, she continued, her professional demeanor returning. The position comes with a modest raise to reflect the additional responsibilities. I'll have HR prepare the paperwork. She moved toward the door, then stopped with her hand on the lock. And Marcus, this conversation, the personal aspects of it, stays between us. I have a reputation to maintain. There was the faintest hint of a smile on her lips as she said it. Of course, I agreed. Thank you, Rebecca. Truly. She unlocked the door. It's Ms. Harper at work, she reminded me, but without the usual edge. Now go home to your daughter. The drive to my apartment was a blur. My mind kept replaying the conversation, hardly believing the turn my fortune had taken. When I arrived, Mrs. Thompson met me at the door, relief evident on her kind face. She just fell back asleep, she whispered. Poor thing was so upset. She had a dream you disappeared like her mother. The words were a punch to the gut. I thanked Mrs. Thompson, apologized for the late night, and went straight to Ellie's room. She was curled around her favorite stuffed elephant, her brown cheeks still tear-stained in the glow of her nightlight, her hair wrapped in the silk bonnet I'd finally learned to put on properly. I sat gently on the edge of her bed, just watching her breathe for a moment. She was getting so big, her face losing its baby roundness, her vocabulary expanding daily with words that sometimes surprised me. She was resilient and fragile all at once, just like me. As if sensing my presence, she stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Daddy? Her voice was thick with sleep. You came back. Of course I did, Ellie Belly, I whispered, using the nickname she usually protested was for babies now. Tonight, she didn't object. I'll always come back. She reached for my hand, her small fingers wrapping around mine. Promise? I promise, I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. And guess what? I'm going to be home a lot more now. I'll be here when you get back from school, most days. Her eyes widened, suddenly more awake. Really? Like for real? For real, I confirmed. I'll still have to work, but I can do it from here, and that means more time for us. She considered this, her 8-year-old mind processing the implications. Can we have pancakes in the morning, the dinosaur kind? I laughed softly. Absolutely, with chocolate chips. She smiled, satisfied with this concrete evidence of our improved future, and her eyes drifted closed again. I stayed until her breathing deepened, then carefully extracted my hand and went to my own room. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I finally let the emotions of the evening wash over me. Relief, gratitude, and a cautious hope I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. I thought about Rebecca, Ms. Harper, and the unexpected depth behind her efficient exterior. How strange that the person I'd feared would end my career had instead thrown me a lifeline. I made a silent promise, both to Ellie and to Rebecca, that I wouldn't waste this opportunity. I would excel in this new role, prove that her faith in me wasn't misplaced, and most importantly, be the father Ellie deserved. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of transition. The paperwork went through faster than I expected. Rebecca's influence, no doubt. And by mid-January, I was setting up my home office in the small second bedroom we'd been using for storage. Ellie helped me decorate, insisting that my workspace needed personality. This apparently meant a string of fairy lights around the window, a collection of her artwork taped to the wall, and a small potted cactus she picked out. Because it's hard to kill, Daddy, even for you, out of the mouths of babes. The remote work program launched with 5 employees initially, with plans to expand to 20 by year's end. Rebecca was right about my understanding of the challenges. I implemented systems that accounted for school schedules, doctor appointments, and the general unpredictability of life. We created communication protocols that kept everyone connected without requiring constant availability. To my surprise, productivity increased across the board. People worked more efficiently when they weren't watching the clock for daycare pickup. Client satisfaction improved because we could be more flexible with meeting times. The program became a selling point for recruitment, attracting talented people who valued work-life balance. Rebecca and I maintained our professional relationship at work. She was still demanding, still expected excellence, but there was an unspoken understanding between us. Now, occasionally, I'd catch her watching me with something like satisfaction when the quarterly numbers exceeded projections. The real change, though, was at home. I was there when Ellie got off the school bus. I could attend her school plays and parent-teacher conferences without the accompanying stress of missed work. We established routines, homework before dinner, reading together before bed, pancakes on Wednesday mornings just because. Sunday dinners at my mother's house became possible again, and Ellie loved hearing her grandmother's stories. Slowly, her nightmares decreased. The fear that I would disappear faded as my presence became reliable. She started talking about the future again, making plans for summer vacation and asking if she could join the soccer team next fall. It wasn't perfect. Single parenthood never is. There were still difficult days, still moments when she needed a mother's perspective I couldn't provide, still times when work deadlines collided with her needs. But the constant grinding stress had lifted. We had room to breathe, to enjoy each other, to heal. 6 months into the new arrangement, Rebecca, Ms. Harper, called me into the office for a performance review. The remote work program had exceeded all metrics, and upper management was taking notice. There was talk of expanding it company-wide, possibly even using it as a model for other branches. "You've done exceptional work, Marcus," she said, reviewing the numbers on her tablet. "The board is impressed." "Thank you," I said. "But it's been a team effort. Everyone in the program has contributed to its success." She looked up, her expression softening just slightly. "True, but it needed the right leadership. Someone who understood what was at stake." I nodded, acknowledging the compliment. "How's your father?" I asked, venturing into personal territory we rarely touched at work. A brief smile crossed her face. "Retired in Florida, plays too much golf, and sends me pictures of alligators on the course." She set down her tablet. "And your daughter?" "Thriving," I said, unable to keep the pride from my voice. "She's joining the school science club and hasn't had a nightmare in over a month." "Good," Rebecca said simply, but the word carried weight. As I stood to leave, she added, "The company is hosting a family picnic next month at Riverside Park. It would be good to have representation from the remote work division." It wasn't quite a personal invitation, but it wasn't purely professional either. It existed in that gray area we'd established since our bathroom conversation. "We'll be there," I promised. The company picnic was held on a perfect June day, the kind that makes you grateful to live in a place with seasons. The park was filled with employees and their families, with games organized for the children and catered food for everyone. Ellie was initially shy, clinging to my side as we navigated through groups of unfamiliar adults. I'd spent an hour that morning doing her hair in 2-strand twists with colorful beads at the ends, her favorite style for special occasions. But when she spotted the face painting station, her reserve melted away. "Can I, Daddy, please?" she begged, pointing to a little boy walking away with a Spider-Man design on his cheek. "Of course," I agreed, and we made our way over. As we waited in line, I felt a presence beside me and turned to find Rebecca, Ms. Harper, watching us with an amused expression. She was dressed casually in jeans and a blue blouse, her usual corporate armor nowhere to be seen. "Ms." I greeted her, surprised. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Rebecca, please," she corrected. "We're not in the office." She smiled at Ellie, who was watching her curiously. "And who is this?" "This is Ellie," I said. "Ellie, this is Ms. Harper, Rebecca. She's my boss at work." Ellie studied Rebecca with a frank assessment only children can get away with. "You're pretty," she finally declared, "and I like your hair." "Daddy said you were scary, but you don't look scary." I felt my face flush. "Ellie, I didn't. I said Ms. Harper was a very strong leader who—" Ellie still has moments of missing her birth mother, especially as she navigates the challenges of becoming a teenager. We still face the everyday struggles of balancing work and family, of building a life together from separate foundations. But we've created something that works. A family formed not by obligation or tradition, but by choice and commitment. A home where careers matter but people matter more. A place where a single dad who once felt like he was drowning can breathe. Where a driven executive can soften without losing her strength. Where a child who lost her mother can find stability and love in unexpected forms. Sometimes I think about that company Christmas party. About how close I came to slipping out unnoticed. About how differently our lives might have unfolded if Rebecca hadn't intercepted me in that moment. How a conversation that began with, "This stays between us," opened up to include so much more. Life's most significant turning points rarely announce themselves. They arrive disguised as ordinary moments, as bathroom conversations and company picnics, as water balloon tosses and chess lessons on the beach. It's only in looking back that we recognize them for what they were, the first steps on a path we couldn't yet see. If you're watching this and feeling overwhelmed, stretched too thin between the competing demands of work and family, know that there are solutions you might not have imagined yet. People who might understand your struggles better than you think. Possibilities waiting just beyond the boundaries of what you believe is possible. Sometimes the help you need comes from the most unexpected sources. Sometimes the family you're meant to have is still taking shape. Sometimes the words, "This stays between us," are just the beginning of a story that wants to be shared. Like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories that remind us we're not alone in our struggles. And remember that even in your darkest moments, unexpected light might be just around the corner. Thank you for listening to our story.